that is an absolutely true statement. It's like when it came to getting high and or drunk, it like just didn't matter at all.
None.
It's like whatever I had to do was going to happen. Whether I was like riding on a BMX bike through the hill country in Texas, or to go like buy whatever, or like transit, like walking through the woods. It's like I was gonna go and do whatever it is that I had to do to go get weed or pills or this, that, or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good transition to start talking about like, well, what does it really mean to be a drug addict? I know for me, whenever I was so young, it was like I remember when someone first called me a drug addict, it was one of my good friends too. And I was just literally walking up the street. I don't know where I was going, but he said something about me being a drug addict. And I was like, dude, no, I'm fucking not. Like I know that like I'm stealing stuff from my house and all just to get drugs and I'm hurting people and I don't care, but I am not a drug addict. And all at the same time, it's like all the consequences that come with stealing or doing drugs, as much as I was doing them, putting myself in this sketchy situation. It's like none of that bothered me at all, and I didn't even wonder why it didn't bother me. Why? Like 5 years prior, I'm like, no way, I'm ever doing drugs. Like I've seen all the videos, I've seen all the what is it? What did they come to the school and start talking to you? Was it Dare?
Dare?
Was it Dare?
I don't remember. I had SRO officers come talk to us.
Okay. Well, anyways, I just remember all those videos, and it's like, as soon as I started doing drugs on a consistent basis, didn't matter. No promises that I made back then kept up. Like very quickly, it was like everything was out the window, and I'm getting fucked up.
No, yeah, like on the topic of like somebody calling me a drug addict for the first time or an alcoholic. Like I remember my mom, I was doing whatever. I was doing drugs. I was drinking booze and stuff like that. My mom's like, John, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, right? And it'll tell me if you're a drug addict or not. She found it like on the internet, and in my head, I was like, I'm gonna answer these things as honestly as I can because I'm not a drug addict. And she answered me.
You gonna find out today.
And she asked me like, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 or 15 questions, and then she was like, John, according to your answers, you're a drug addict. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Who are you to say that I am a drug addict?
Yeah, you can't trust everything you find on the internet, mother.
Dude, seriously. Oh my God.
But no, I mean, I at the end of the day, it was like being so young, like my idea of what it meant to be a drug addict and or an alcoholic looked like what I would see like in the movies. Like you're an old guy with a big old dirty beard underneath a bridge with like
dirty for sure.
What is it called? A paper bottle in a paper bag.
Yeah.
And you're drinking it and you're like, or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm not underneath that bridge. I'm not old. I don't have a beard.
At all.
Well, yeah, not then. I was 17.
Yeah, you're looking good now.
Thanks. But, and like that was my interpretation of like what it meant or what the requirements were to be a drug addict or an alcoholic was just this like total devastation of my entire life. And it was like I still had my mom in my life, my older sister, I was still going to school and making good grades and like, the couple of jobs that I did have that I lost as a result of drugs and alcohol, it's like I still had a job and all these things. And so like, whenever it came to identifying what it meant to be a drug addict and alcoholic, like I had to understand that I had to set aside what I thought that I knew about what that meant or what it looked like really. Because it didn't look like in my head at that time, 17-year-old John drinking booze, popping pills and smoking weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, right? It's like, now that you say that, it's like, okay, well, at what point was I like, damn, I'm a fucking drug addict?
Dude, on the real, is like when I went, or can I say where I went to treatment at?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I mean,
so.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever. So whenever I checked into Phoenix House, day one, it was like, like it was all like right there in my face. It was like, okay, John just got out of a mental hospital. John just totaled his first car after having it for 2 weeks. John just lost 2 jobs, pretty much back to back. And it was like day one, it was like, okay, I have a problem. And then I go in there and like, I'm there with a bunch of other kids and they're all calling themselves drug addicts. So like originally I just said that because everybody else was saying it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I didn't understand what it was that I was agreeing to,
Yeah.
you know, essentially whenever I started saying it. But as far as like the turning point where I was like, damn, you know, like I'm a drug addict was, you know, we would have guys that would come out to Phoenix House to bring a meeting. And, you know, I was in Phoenix House for 118 days. I would say the first couple of months, like it was like I was sleeping during those groups, you know, yada, yada, yada. And like one day I managed to stay awake and like I'm listening to this guy talk. And instead of talking about, you know, all these external consequences, he focused a lot more on his internal condition. And like I could relate without a doubt to that, you know, and he was like a heroin addict, you know, and where I was at that time, it was like, I'm not a drug addict, I'm not doing heroin, I'm not doing methamphetamines, things like that. Like trying to just anything I can to justify why I'm not that, you know, but he didn't talk about any of that. You know, he just talked about like his internal condition, like not liking what it looks like in a mirror, you know, having, you know, being in a room full of friends and family and still feeling alone, and like all these different things. And like, you know, it got my gears turning a little bit there. And it was like, okay, well, if we take the drink and drug question aside, is like, I'm still left with me.
Right.
And like, that's not, and I'm not cool with that at all.
Right.
And since he could relate to how I felt without ever talking to me prior to that, it's like, okay, he must be telling the truth. But he's no longer there.
Isn't it funny that like in treatment, we're like, man, I think these guys might be onto something. Or at the same time, it's like, no, these guys are fucking whack. Mm-hmm. It's like one or the other.
One or the other.
It's like you're either totally in or you need to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know? What's really funny, dude, so I go to treatment, right? And it's like, first question, and it's so funny. It's like, you always wonder, how do you treat the newcomer, you know, as they come into treatment? And you should be all welcoming and, hey, bro, how's it going? And, you know, blah, blah, blah. This one kid, dude, first question, it's like, hey, bro, what's your drug of choice? Or no, he said, what's your DOC? Like, I was like supposed to know that. Like knew what that meant. I'm like, Doc, what the fuck is Doc? You know? And he's like, I said, what's that? And he's like, your drug of choice. And I was like, oh, dude, this is my time to shine. Because how you were just saying, you know, I'm not a drug addict. I didn't do heroin, meth, and all that. Well, I fucking did, you know?
Yeah.
And so they're like, what's your DOC? I said, heroin, you know, meth. And I'm living it up, you know, as soon as I get in there. I'm like, that's what it means to be a drug addict. It's totally based on what you do, you know. And then what I didn't realize until, oh man, I mean, it had to be like 9 months later from getting into treatment the first time to getting out to relapsing for 6 months and then going back in and working with another sponsor is probably about 9 months. And that's when my sponsor at the time, he had explained to me what the physical allergy was. You know, he explained to me like, hey, Tyler, guess what? It doesn't matter what you did, you know, when you did it or whatever. Can you control it when you start? No? Okay. Well, what about staying away? Can you stay away completely and entirely? Oh, no, I can't do that either. You know, just on pure will. I can't do that. And he's like, you see how it's like, no matter how, what do they even say in the book, right? How far down the scale we've gone, and all that, right? It doesn't, you know, some people have done drugs, done less drugs, different drugs, or whatever for a shorter amount of time, and yet you still relate with two common factors, which is that when I put the drug in my system or the alcohol in my system, I can't control it, and then when it's out of my system, at some point, I go through this thing that we call the mental obsession, right? No mental defense. You know, no consequence that did happen prior is going to stop. And I was like, when he told me that, I was like, yeah, dude, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I totally am off the rocker with that. And when I read in our book, it was like, to the alcoholic, their life seems the only normal one. And I was like, finally, someone gets it. Like, this is absolute, like all the chaos, all the confusion, all the fear and the loneliness. Like, yeah. That is normal, and not normal, and like it's happening all the time. It's like what I expect and what I'm now okay with.
Yep. No. All the chaos, right? That always brings you to the part in the book where it says like we cannot bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the suffering and humiliation of a week or a month ago. Because like every time I would stop, like whether that be for whatever reason for like a couple of days or I think 2 weeks was like the max. At a certain point in time, it was like all the bullshit that happened like a week or 2 weeks ago, it just was not coming into that my mind when it came to reasoning why I could smoke weed this time and not go to drinking and popping pills.
Dude, so much to the point that like I would make a resolution, right? I would leave the trap house and I would say, guys, I'm out. And the funny thing is everyone was like, yeah, fucking get out of here, you know, do it for all of us, right? And so I would leave and I would go skate and I'd say, I'm going to go to my grandma's and I'm going to sober up. She's going to take me back to my dad's house and I'm going to sober up for good. And literally on the way to my grandma's house, my thoughts change. That's how quick it happens. And how, like, I know I said one thing, but I mean another. You know, or not necessarily I mean another, but I'm going to then say another thing. And honestly, that's totally, the inconsistency is totally okay with me. You better get the fuck behind me. You know, if I change my mind, I change my mind. You know, if you're in the way, then you got to move. I'm changing my mind and you're not changing my mind again. You know, I'm going to go get fucked up.
Yeah.
That's how, on a consistent basis.
Sometimes a daily basis, where it was like I would wake up and be like, all right, I'm not going to get high today. And then like 5-10 minutes later, it's like, I'm getting high today.
And it's like, man, here's a good question. Why us? Why me? That is like, okay, how many people are like, man, I didn't choose to be a drug addict. Okay, so what the fuck does that mean? Do we just ignore the fact that this is the reality, right? Yeah. Like there's like what some pity about now I have to do something about it. No, like we're gonna get a pass just because we didn't choose it. So
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I was told that it's not my fault that I'm a drug addict and alcoholic, but it is my responsibility.
Yeah, you definitely say that a lot, and every time you say it, I'm like, damn, you can't. There's no getting out of that.
There's no getting out of that.
Especially
Especially after you have been introduced to a solution.
Oh my god.
It's like after you've been introduced and you understand what lack of power, lack of choice, and all these things are, and you like you have been like, okay, that's me. It's like you no longer have an excuse because you have a solution.
Well, what do I hear? I hear a lot of the times like once you are made aware of something, right, you no longer have the grace, right? Because you know now that I'm made aware of my own actions being the result of the resentment or fear in my life or whatever, and my behaviors are causing the confusion or whatever. Now I got to do something about it. Like you said, it's the responsibility.
Yep.
And so as soon as I'm made aware of something and the truth of something, I no longer have any grace. Because before I'm just flying blind, you know, with grace all behind me. Not anymore.
What's up, Grace? No. The once you be made aware, what did you say?
Yeah, once I'm made aware of something, I no longer have the grace.
Yeah, it's like the total opposite of ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
It's like you can no longer claim ignorance. And when it comes to me being a drug and alcoholic, that ignorance was not bliss.
No.
There was nothing. It was just the whirling tornado ravaging my life and like the lives of everybody around me, which was also a big misconception that I had, was that like my addiction, my alcoholism was really only affecting me.
Yeah.
To a certain degree or to a certain extent, I could see how, like, you know, okay, I'm making my mom upset, making my sister upset, you know, my mom and whoever the hell else is upset and they're scared and stuff like that. But I'm like, why? It's my life. You know, like they're like, which I guess in hindsight, essentially what I was saying was their love doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is like not a nice thing to say.
Well, it's not a nice thing to say, but like, oh man, I was probably talking to Megan about this, and you know, maybe my dad watches this, but I mean, this is the truth of my mindset, right? And people need to hear this shit. My dad would check up on me, and I would get so fucking mad. You know, he's like, "Hey, son, just checking in, making sure you're alive."
Yep.
And I'm like, don't fucking hit me up. And really, because it's like, I don't know if you want to call it like ashamed or whatever, but I do not want to face the reality that like I am burning not only my life down, but I am, like you said, hurting everyone around me. And there's a massive part of me that doesn't want to change. So let's not even talk about the potential of like the reality of my situation. I didn't want to live in the reality of my situation. I wanted to keep doing what I was doing without thinking about anything.
No, yeah. relate to your dad calling and saying, "Are you alive?" and like you be mad about it. Like that's how I always phrase restless, or the irritability part of like restless, irritable, discontent is like mom calls and says, "Hey John, what's up?" And I'm like, "Leave me the fuck alone, Meredith." It's like, whoa. I was just how was school? It's like school sucked, and like she's just trying to like have a conversation with her son, and like I'm like, why? For the love of God, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't even want to see you. And it's just like I just have no regulation of anything, and to a certain degree, one could say that was like, well, you were young. And it's like, well, I was young, and yes, that might have been something to do with like puberty or whatever the hell, but you accompany all that with just the obscene actions due to drugs and alcohol that I was both taking and doing. It's just like, realistically, like, I guess I would have to be honest with myself in the sense of like, if it wasn't for the drugs and alcohol, would I have still acted like that? It's like, probably not. If I wasn't a drug and alcoholic, would I have been so restless, irritable, and discontent? It's like, probably not.
Well, it's funny, right? Because I mean, I don't know at what point it switched, but I know that when it did, when I started getting into drugs and stuff, it's like that was my source. For me, it was like I had no idea that growing up, like all I wanted was just to feel okay with myself to some degree. I wanted to be comfortable in my own skin to some degree. I did, but when I took drugs and alcohol and I put those in my system, I had no idea that I found something that I was looking for so long. Whenever I like even with weed, right? Whenever I would smoke weed, dude, I didn't need other people to be there. I didn't need other people to say anything about me. I didn't need to be invited anywhere. I didn't need this acceptance from anything. Like, it was finally me alone and okay. Now, the problem with that is that shit burns down. So there's a massive problem.
Yep.
But it is the source. Drugs, alcohol were the source for me feeling okay. The problem is nothing stays okay.
Yep. No, it's like if I had my drink and my drug, you could put me down on the floor with like cockroaches crawling over me. Like I'm okay. I'm
fine.
But like then you take away the drugs and alcohol and you put me like in a nice house with my mom, my whole family, and then I'm like, get me the fuck out of here.
Get me the fuck out. Give me, because it's obvious, right? It's like I'm around these people that are telling me, hey, this isn't the move. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not the move? I'm fucked up. I'm good. This is the move. Don't tell me it's not the move. Yeah.
No, like I just know for me, I was really, so I guess I would not say that I fall underneath the being born alcoholic. Yeah. I feel like I went through a transitional period there, right? Because like I remember the first time smoking weed. I smoked weed, I actually didn't get high at all.
Of course.
All I
me
did.
either.
It was like with like a Minute Maid can.
Right.
You poked holes in with a knife.
Absolutely.
Or whatever the hell. Like no one told me you were gonna cough, so I coughed into the can and all the bud went. And everyone's like, bro, what the fuck, bro? You're not supposed to cough in it. I'm like, well,
this shit doesn't come with instructions, bro.
You should have told me. You literally were watching me.
Oh my god.
I was like, I didn't even really get high.
Assholes.
But even though I didn't get high, I still acted differently.
Yes.
Like I still got like real jazzed up, like weed's gonna give you like an excess amount of energy.
Yeah.
Which isn't the case.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my second time smoking weed that I was like, I didn't even get high the first time.
Dude, oh my God, it's such a different story. Absolutely. Whenever I first smoked weed, dude, same thing, right? I mean, it was probably like a joint or something like that. And I was like, how the fuck do you do this? And it took me like 30 seconds of pondering, well, I made that one promise to my grandma that I never smoked. And I was like, let me hit that. How do I hit it though? And after that, I can't remember if I got high or not. I'm going to say I didn't based off the next time I smoked weed and I got fucked up.
Yep. Amen.
Dude, but in that very first session, smoke weed, and then this thing that I got in my brain triggers. And it's like, look at that, like, 75% smoking crushed cigarette on the ground. Hit that, light it up. What?
Yeah.
What in my brain says, oh, now we're in it? Very first time, now we're in it. What else can we do? And I look on the ground and find a stepped on cigarette.
Yep.
And my other buddy, whenever I try to hit it, he fucking knocks out of it. He's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I'm like, that's probably the first time actually that I was ever embarrassed of like my behavior around drugs and alcohol. And guess what? It was also the first time I had ever really put any drugs and alcohol in my system. I mean, if I'm like not a drug addict, like if I don't think something's wrong after that, you know, first time doing it, first time immediately fucking up already. Come on.